What's up, everyone? This is episode 19 of the Buddy Ruski Show. My guest today is Margaret McNab. Margaret is a brilliant marketer and communicator and a big supporter of freelancing and gig workers. We talked about her journey from Montana, where she was born, to Oregon, where she went to college, and eventually, after a short stint in Prague, because, why not, how she made her way to Durham in 2009. Margaret took a job leading public relations for the Durham Convention and Visitors Bureau, or what is now known as Discover Durham, in 2010, at an important inflection point in the city's recent history. There's lots to learn in this one. A quick disclaimer. This episode was recorded in January, so some of the more recent events in our country have not been accounted for in parts of the conversation about COVID and post-traumatic stress, among other things. Please be sure to follow Buddy Ruski on social, or sign up for the newsletter at buddyruski.com. We have a lot of important company updates coming up, and I wouldn't want you to miss them. Without further ado, here's Margaret McNab. Margaret McNab, thanks so much for being on the Buddy Ruski Show.
Hello. Thrilled to be here. Thrilled to talk to you. Thrilled to see somebody.
I know it's nice to have that face-to-face connection, even if it's through a computer screen. We were just talking about our blue light glasses and how we need them through the tremendous amount of time that we're looking at screen these days. The pandemic has only exaggerated that for most people.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of people wearing glasses these days.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to protect their screen eyes.
Well, I've always tried to do this when I start the show and figure out where it is that I initially connected with folks. And I don't actually know if I can pinpoint when you and I first met. I think maybe you had just left the visitor center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not coming to me. Maybe it'll come to me during our conversation. But usually I'm pretty good about that. This time around, it's still a mystery to me.
I think I know where it is.
Oh, good. Well, maybe it will reveal itself a little bit later. But I'd love to start at the beginning and hear a little bit about, I know you're not a native to North Carolina. At the beginning of this run of episodes, I feel like I was only talking to people that were native to North Carolina. And now the last few conversations I've had they've been mostly with transplants. So it's interesting to see how that's morphed over time. But yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about just like where you're from and maybe how you got here to North Carolina.
Yeah. So I grew up in Missoula, Montana. I was born in Bend, Oregon, but went to, most all my school, high school, all that kind of stuff in Montana. But I always kind of aspired to go back to Oregon, but especially just to get out of Montana and just, explore and see more of what was out there in the world and all that kind of stuff. It was a great place to grow up, and there's just enough trouble that you could get into there. So that's good. But I wanted to experience trouble.
How did you end up down in Montana?
So my family's originally from there. Our family has my dad's family had a ranch in eastern Montana. And very, the flat, the hot part of it and all that. So then he grew up in Billings, and then eventually always wanted to go back to Montana. So so my mom got a job with the Forest Service. That's what she'd been doing for her entire career, and then that kind of brought us over there and brought us back to Montana. And my family still lives out there. They're in Bozeman, Montana. So I still visit pretty regularly, although I don't go to the town where I grew up very often.
Is there anybody left in that town from your family?
Nope. Yeah, I really haven't been to Missoula in years. But Bozeman's awesome. It's right near Yellowstone Park, and yeah, it's a great place to get to go and visit.
I think Bozeman is the only city that I know in Montana.
Uh-huh. Helena, Billings is the largest city in Montana. Yeah, I couldn't tell you what the head count is there, but when I was growing up, it was Billings was the city, and it had the tallest building in the state. And I believe it was like 11 floors or something, 11, 13 floor, entire state.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, the Triangle, well, I guess the Red Hat building is pretty tall, but I know Durham for most of my life, I can only think of one building that was more than 10 feet or 10 stories, sorry. And it was they called, I know people call it the Pickle. It's
That's what
like
I was
the
going to say.
University Towers built. I don't know. I forget what the building actually is now, but yeah. So, Durham has grown a lot
Yeah.
in the last few years. I wouldn't feel too bad about
Yeah.
not
Well,
having
I also
skyscrapers.
remember growing up in Missoula. I remember when the mall, when they put in an escalator, and that was the first escalator in the entire state of Montana. And they so the day that they opened it, there was like lines so you could go, so that people could go up in it, and it was like this big celebration and all that. And there were bumper stickers that said, "I rode Montana's first escalator," that they were handing out. And the best part was it was just going to the mezzanine level.
Who needs theme parks when you've got escalators, right?
Oh yeah, something as exciting as that. And that was like 1998 or something. Big stuff.
So you said that you knew you eventually wanted to make it back to Oregon. What
Mm-hmm.
was it about Oregon? I mean, I guess the little that I know about Montana
Mm-hmm.
is that there's not a whole lot going on if
Right.
you're, depending on what you're looking for. So you did eventually make your way back to Oregon for school, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I have a lot of family in Oregon and Washington as well. And so a lot of my family members had gone to University of Oregon. And some of my earliest memories as a kid were of us, driving from Bend to Eugene, which is basically you're going from this high desert to this very lush, beautiful Willamette Valley. And there's just such strong memories in my mind of looking out the window and seeing all that. So it was very strong, like positive association with Eugene, Oregon, and the university. So I just kind of had always had in my mind that that's where I want to go. And yeah, a lot of fun family memories and all that there too. So
Was there a particular part of the school that you were interested in? Like what was it about besides family history? Was there
mhm.
something in particular at University of Oregon that you were interested in getting into?
Well, yeah, I mean, mostly I was interested in getting out of Montana.
Yeah.
So I got, so I just got a bunch of, scholarships and all that, and was just kind of doing a little choose your own adventure. So I applied to the honors college, and I applied, for some funding through that, and through this program that was called the Western Undergraduate Exchange. So it basically gives you some sort of like, tuition credit. So it made it like nearly like in-state tuition. So then I was able to afford it. So that seemed like a really great way to achieve my goal. And so, as I was applying for that, applying to that program, one of the ways that you could do it is just like all through underfunded programs within the school, I guess, or under enrolled. So Anthropology was one of those, and that had a lot of appeal for me, just for a curiosity about people and culture, and just really just people, just very very interested in expanding my world and all that. So
Did that come from your parents at all?
Nope. I think that that's just was always my kind of outlook or an interest or my special, um, special thing. So yeah, so that seemed like a really, um, yeah, a good thing to do. So I did that.
I feel like that's, given that you're now a communications professional,
Mhm.
I feel like you're one of the few people that I've talked to that has actually used their degree to some
Mhm.
level.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is definitely forms my perspective on everything about how I approach marketing, PR, leadership, management, all that kind of stuff.
Was there a
Uh,
particular job that you were seeking out as a anthropology major?
oh, absolutely not. Nope, 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 nope. No, I don't think I ever. My game plan never really went past graduation day of college, or university. Just really, just did not think about that until the day after. It's like, oh man, oh boy, what am I going to do? Um,
Did you stick around in Oregon much after graduation?
so I taught. So my work study job during college was teaching conversational English. I was like, this is awesome. I just get paid to talk to people. Great. So to international students, right? Because I'm also, my main motivation is just expanding my world and meeting new people and different kind of people and all that. So it's like just the best possible job to have for whatever it was, like $8 an hour, $10 an hour. But so the summer after I graduated, I ended up staying on campus and um, uh, teaching and being a part of this program, like EFL program. And over that, so it's like for Fulbright students and Humphrey scholars and all that. So they'd come from all over the world. They'd learn how to improve their English before they went out to the other programs, and there'd be other, just I don't know, all sorts of different student groups. So I really liked that work, and there were some of the teachers for that language program who said you could get jobs abroad teaching English, and I was like, that sounds great. I'll do that. So that's what I did. So then I moved to Spokane, Washington, and I lived in my parents' basement. And I worked at a call center and that was like $8.50 an hour. But I did as much overtime as I could. So I just made money and decided that I was going to move to Europe and teach English. So I did that, and I moved to Prague, like sight unseen, no place to live, no job, all that. Just made it
Is there
happen.
any other way to do it?
I don't know, but boy, that I just scared the crap out of myself, I'll tell you.
Why Prague of all the places that you could go?
Because I don't know. Yeah, it just seemed like a good one. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There was I really don't know. There's some sort of appeal.
Just kind of spun the globe and threw a dart and was like, that seems okay.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
where would my money go pretty far
Mm.
and still be, I don't know, we have some family in family friends in Germany, so it felt like there was some sort of anchor on the continent, and that was enough.
Were you always thinking Europe? Were you ever considering South America, Africa, anything like that?
I don't know. Yeah, um, South America. I don't speak Spanish or
Yeah.
anything,
And
so
having family friends, like you said, close
yeah,
by when you're going out on a whim like that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just was, I think, in making it happen mode, and that just seemed like a viable option in terms of like also how the jobs worked. So a lot of the programs in Asia you're teaching kids, and I wanted to teach adults. Um, so because those jobs are a little bit more flexible, I guess, and when you're teaching kids, it has to be super linear, and I don't know. So,
So you had somewhat of a plan.
yeah, I mean, just generally, just kind of thoughts and feelings. It all came together.
How long were you in Prague for?
Yeah, I was there just over a year. I taught business professionals. I taught like Fortune 500 company executives how to converse in English. They practiced their speeches with me, and it was great. I was like 22 years old. It was a great adventure.
What brought you back stateside after that?
I think my mom had gotten sick. There was some health issues in the family, and I didn't want to be as far away and have to deal with the time zone, because of course my family's back in Montana still, right? So it's a number of hours in between us. And I think also I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do now? I was pretty good at teaching English. but I was also like, okay, what else is there? So I had expressed that to one of my college best friends, Tyler, and in an email, and he was like, well, why don't you just move home to Portland? And I was like, well, except because I've never lived in Portland, it's not really home. He was like, sure it is. I said, okay, sure, then I'll do that. So I came back and flew back into Bozeman, into Montana, Missoula, and then bought a Greyhound ticket, and I had a couple of bags, and I moved to Portland.
What was Portland like when you got there? Because I think of Portland in a similar manner to a lot of. Honestly, I think of Portland as like the sort of original hipster town. The way that people think of Austin, Raleigh, Durham, I don't know, Richmond, Virginia, just like all these places, Boston, all these places that have growing tech scenes and breweries and music venues and all that kind of stuff. I think of Portland as being kind of the OG of that. And so I'm curious what your experience was like in Portland at that time.
I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It was a really good time. By the time I left, I was like, okay, my life is never going to be quite like this again. But I worked in music. That's eventually where I landed. As a music publicist, and I managed some bands and worked in a recording studio, and I had definitely a really cool life. I went out a lot.
Yeah.
Went to a lot of shows.
I know the gig a little bit through Runaway. We had a lot of long weeks, long weekends, just going to anything in the scene that we could, we would be invited to. It was like, okay, like how could we say no?
Yeah, exactly. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun to be a part of something.
Especially when you're young too, and you're like, you have less responsibilities, and you're just like, okay, if there was a time in my life that this was going to make sense, now is it.
Yeah.
So got to get it out of my system.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel completely satisfied.
But probably won't do it again, it sounds like.
I don't think so. Not in full. Not in full. I'm not proud of every moment.
So you bounce around a bit. You're in school in Oregon. You leave Oregon. You come back to Oregon. How do you eventually end up in Durham?
So I moved out here with a guy that I was dating in Portland. Another was a very creative guy, an advertising guy, and and he had gotten recruited out here to work at McKinney And so,
I've heard of it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I came with. Yeah. I kind of reached a point in Portland, both like kind of socially and professionally and all that, where I was just, uh, yeah, I just wanted more. I wanted something different.
I know
Yeah.
you're not uh like your friend mentioned, or that you mentioned, that Portland isn't home necessarily, but it is still Oregon. Was there a sense that this sort of felt like too close to home? You were just kind of like, I want to go, I'm getting the itch to just like explore a totally different environment.
Yeah, I think that there was. Yeah, I that pursuit of just wanting to see more of the world and experience more and see different things, and have a very I don't know. I that's kind of what the motivation to come out here was, and also just to uh, look for work and different types of work. I enjoyed music, but um, that was my foray into independent work, into freelancing,
When did you move to North Carolina?
in 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so in Portland, so yeah, I'd been freelancing out there, but not without like really knowing it. It was more just, this is the kind of work that I'm putting together, and it was fun, and I could make it work. It wasn't comfortable, but I didn't quite understand enough about. Yeah, I didn't quite understand that I was operating a business. I didn't really see it that way, and that's not quite what I wanted either. So I was applying for all these jobs and trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. And so in the course of 1 year, I applied for like over 300 jobs.
Wow.
And this would probably be like 2008 or something like that.
That
And
was probably a
yeah,
good
over
time to be
300.
looking for work, right? Right at
Yeah, exactly.
the
And we know that now, but at the time I just took it so personally,
yeah.
as it's anytime you're on the job market or whatever, like it's a very vulnerable thing, and it's hard not to take personally and all that. But yeah, so I was just doing all these, I was doing my work, but I was doing just applying for jobs all the time, and interviewing for jobs. And there were 3 times that I made it to the 5th round of interviews and did not get hired. And so by the end of it, I just was like, I just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be soul
and
crushing.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, there's all sorts of things that, that, yeah, that can become soul crushing in the, in a situation like that. So
It's interesting to
yeah.
hear you say that you weren't looking for that kind of lifestyle then, because that's what I think of your like big strength being, is sort of the person who has navigated freelance work in such a way that you've really carved out a niche for yourself. Granted, I think that freelancing and the gig economy and that type of work, the infrastructure, and this is sort of points to some of the work that you've done with the
Mhm.
freelance league. The infrastructure for freelancing and gig work wasn't really there, at least to my knowledge. And so it's not like now where if you want to be a freelancer, there's a blueprint that has been laid out by people that have come before you, and there are organizations that are around specifically to help people, with their essentially small business. But I'm sure that stuff didn't exist when you were putting that kind of lifestyle together. It could be daunting to think about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just was like, why why does is my professional life, why doesn't it look like everybody else's? I just, and at that point, of course, I'd zigged and zagged a few times. It's like, I mean, I get it, like an anthropology degree, I got a business minor, it's cool. And then going off and teaching English, and then coming teaching business English or whatever, and then coming back and working in music. Like, I get it. But yeah, that was just kind of got old after a while. But
when people see those careers, that career path now, and look at it slightly differently because the value of soft skills have been made more apparent. And so on paper, you look at anthropology degree, teaching in, business English in Prague,
mm-hmm.
running your own operation as a music publicist, managing bands, and it doesn't seem like it connects, but there are a lot of skills within each one of those positions that make up a really solid resume as a communicator, as a manager.
Right. It was tough in like 2008, 2009 is the thing, you know? And so I was freelancing and I was doing my thing and all that, but it was totally nerve wracking just to have to figure it out on my own.
And you continued freelancing here in North Carolina when you got here.
And then, I had like carried over a little bit. But I also, just had kind of like odd jobs and stuff like that too, until I took a job with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is now Discover Durham.
I'd love to hear more about that position because coming to Durham in 2009, 2010 is right. It seems like right at the cusp of this first wave, second wave of Durham revitalization. The DPAC had been around, ATC had been around for a little bit, but Durham was certainly not what we think of now. And so I'm curious what maybe what appealed to you about the job, and also what did you see as the task in front of you when trying to promote Durham to the world in 2009, 2010, given the sort of limited resources, so to speak, that you would have had then. There are so many things that you can promote now, but back then a lot of these things that we think of as Durham institutions didn't exist. So I'm curious to hear what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I think that it'll always be one of the best products I've ever gotten to work on or to sell, like Durham. It was great. There's a lot to enjoy and have fun with and learn about at that time. So I think just some of the skills for the job. It was like a PR job and just kind of tourism. I think maybe my music background was intriguing to them and whatever. But it was great. I got the job. So and I was new here, so it was a really cool way to do what I'd done, like, that summer after I graduated from college, and learn about all the various assets and amenities and sites and all that. So,
do you think it helped or hurt more to not have been in this area very long?
I think I was very curious about, exploring it all and seeing what was going on. And I've been to places in this area that people growing up here haven't necessarily been to recently, Bennett Place or whatever.
So you had sort of a fresh take or like fresh eyes on a place, because I feel that way too. I think there are plenty of places in Durham growing up here that, granted, as a young kid, you have your play spaces, so there are things that you would never think to go to.
Right.
But at the same time, there are plenty of places that, I'll drive around now and I might happen to be in the car with my grandfather or my mom, and they'll point out a place that they used to go eat, or it used to be this thing, and I'm like, wait, what? It always was this other thing that I know it for. And so,
Mhm.
that perspective, whether it's in Durham or somebody moving here from out of Durham, I think has certainly shaped or changed my perception of what Durham is and has been, compared to the way I
Mhm.
felt in a time like 2010, where people were moving here and I was just like, who the hell are these people? What are they doing here? They don't get
Mhm.
it. They
Mhm.
don't understand.
Yeah,
Um,
what's their deal? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was fun to I got to meet so many people and business owners and folks within the city at that time too, which was really, really appealing. So I like to meet people and I like to learn what they're about and what they're doing. I don't know. Yeah, it was that was a really a good time to be here in Durham. That was right when the Pinhook was opening. That was right when Motorco was opening. That was right when so Casbah, that club. There's just a couple other spots like
Full
that.
Steam, I think,
Full
was
Steam.
around
Yeah,
that time.
yeah, that's right when that popped up. So there was just a lot to talk about. And yeah, so and it was fun, and there was a lot of opportunity too. Even I got to write this extended column about the music venues and all that in the visitor guide, which was cool, and I was really excited about because I felt like that was a way for me to contribute to attracting more daytime visitors or whatever, more people to come to Durham, because that's what gets the bands here is so that was really fun to feel like I was still connected to that mission and had some way to help. It was also one of my great joys, and uh, probably favorite projects still to this day, was when they launched the Bull City Connector, that free bus around town. I got assigned to be the social media voice, and I just loved it. I loved showing up every day and just getting to be a bus and meeting people as a bus and yeah, it was great. I loved it.
It's amazing.
uh, yeah, so there's just a lot of fun things to do through that organization.
How long were you there for?
I feel like I was there for like 3 years or something, like two and a half, something like that.
It does seem
Yeah.
like a job that is ripe for, I don't want to say turnover, but it does seem like it's a job that benefits from having fresh perspective often. When you start to get when it starts to get institutionalized, you start to get
Mhm.
people like me who are, the are begrudging all the new folks instead of being
Mhm.
welcoming, or your perspective just gets warped, it gets skewed, you're like in it so deep. I mean, I know I feel this between all the various roles that I've had in the last decade with Runaway and American Underground, and just being entrenched in that community for a long time. You start to feel an attachment to it and a obligation to it,
Mhm.
and it's hard to be objective. And I think that was always a struggle for me, was how can I be an objective observer of what's happening around me, as
Mhm.
someone who enjoys, who has a similar, I didn't major in anthropology, but I would like to think that I have some of that in me a little bit as a journalist, to want to be a voice for the community. And when you start to get that deep into it, again, it's hard to be objective. So I imagine that, I don't know if that happened to you at all, but it seems like 3 years is probably a good run for a position like that.
Yeah, it was a good run for me to figure out, what else I wanted. Because at this point, so I was I joined the Scrap Exchange Board at that time. And then assumed I became, I guess I was the president of the board for a couple of those years. And this is when right after the roof collapsed, and we moved out to Golden Belt, and then we bought the building that the scrap is in now. So that was really fun, and I got to also contribute to the creative community in that capacity, and do some cool stuff, and really start to explore leadership as both a concept and and a responsibility that one could step into, and contributions to make and all that. So I was excited about that, and I was doing some small freelance projects again too. I just wanted more stuff to do. That was kind of the thing, was there was only a finite amount of work for me at work. So then I just started doing more stuff on my own, and then I really just kind of wanted to go back and have the freedom of working for myself. I really, it's kind of it was my first nature, So I was putting the vibe out for some more work, and I got a sizable enough anchor client to go back to freelance. And I could, by that point, I had a really high tolerance for the unstable income and all that. And I had a plan going back in this time. I had enough experience to say, okay, here's what I need to reset. And that was really fun. That was fun, going back into that freelance experience, and with more confidence, and knowing that I could do it better, but that for sure I could do it.
Was the change in infrastructure around freelancing at all, did that play into your decision?
Nope. No, I would say at that time, even there weren't, I wouldn't say there was like much of a conversation around freelancing. It's still kind of the, you're, kind of apologetically explaining how it is that you make a living, rather than saying, this is my job title. And everybody's like, oh, yes. Oh, I understand who you are. I see your value to society. Instead, it's like, like, you fit in. But that was comfortable to me. That was worth it. That was exciting.
Did you have any mentors or anyone in this space that you looked to, or that gave you the energy, or like the knowledge to really push back into that? Or was this more, like you said, first nature for you, and so you just did it on your own?
Yeah, I think I really just kind of launched back into it on my own. Although I knew a couple of things that how I approach things differently were by getting to know the other people in the other handful of PR freelancers who are out there, a handful of women, and it's like, okay, those are the first people that I need to know. And because we could share contacts and all that, and we're all people. So that was very cool. And I think in a little bit unexpected for some folks. Like, why would you just reach out to your quote unquote competitor? What's the value in that? But there was just tremendous value. So we all knew who each other was, and whose expertise was what, so we could make sure that everybody was, working on the right stuff, and we could help each other be successful. And that was very cool. That was definitely a big part of those days.
It does seem like that's been as long as I've been in Durham, and MO for the way that people operate here is that there's enough to go around. And so there's not this hyper competitive, cutthroat mentality for people that work here. It's much more cordial, and even I would take it a step further, people are like going out of their way to help you. Everyone kind of has this mentality that they, of service. And so, yeah, I'm glad to hear that, but I'm also not surprised that that was
Mhm.
your experience, because I just know from my experience at a place like American Underground where that seemed to be a constant. People, that was one of the things that I loved about it early
Mhm.
on when Gabe and I had our office there for Runaways. Just it was so easy. I felt so comfortable going to a neighboring office and knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, I really don't know how to do this email marketing automation. Do you have 30 minutes? Like, it's frying my brain." And they would drop what they were doing and just be like, "Oh yeah, here's this tool. Just, do
Mhm.
this thing, click this button, you're good to go." And I really appreciate that. I definitely don't take that for granted. And especially
Mhm.
now, given the year that we just had, it
Mhm.
seemed like people were able to maintain that in the face of all the other shit that was happening around
Yeah.
us. So
And that's really what you really get to the heart of what made Durham a really fun product to sell, or like a company to, or whatever. It was exciting to be, or it was exciting to be getting other people excited about Durham because that had been my experience. This is not, I'm sorry to say, this is not the most beautiful place I've ever lived. Yeah, everybody has their own opinion, but Portland, Oregon, stunning. Missoula, Montana, Bose. I'm sorry, but what makes this place exceptional really is the that supportive, um, attitude. Um,
I can
those,
edit all of that out so people will never know that you badmouth
yeah,
me. That's
exactly.
okay.
Straight talk.
Um, so as you're getting back into freelancing, something that that you and I have talked about before is like the amount of, you're running your own business, and a
Mhm,
lot of times if you're freelancing, you are doing it as a solo act. And
mhm,
there is this, there's some energy to freelancing and the thrill of getting clients, working on new projects all the time, but there's also the um opposite side of that, which is that like you're potentially working all the time. You're sort of making up for some of the foundation that a normal corporate job might give you, um, for the freedom that you have as a solo entrepreneur. And I'm wondering if you could speak to sort of what the ups and downs are for that lifestyle, because it's a scary thing to jump into.
yeah.
You certainly have to have your ducks in a row, because you're not only managing different clients, but it also means you're like getting paid from lots of different people. When you're filing your taxes, you have to worry about getting this form and this form
Mhm.
from these, various entities. And so it's not as, it may seem glamorous to some people on the surface, but there's a lot that goes into building a successful life as a freelancer. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard work. It's definitely hard work. It's rewarding. It's exciting to get to really, yeah, just to lead yourself, lead your business, lead your life exactly, um, with the skills that you want to explore and the strengths you want to apply. There are so many wonderful parts about it, but yeah, you do really have to do your homework and understand all the various implications of that. And a lot of it is fairly simple. The billing and uh, some of the tax bits. It's not terribly complicated. You just need to know what you need to do. Um, but the bigger point about time management in general, that is, uh, it takes a while to develop that experience to price yourself properly. If you are underselling yourself, um, then you're going to be working 5 times as hard because you've just diluted the value of each time or each hour of your week. So
Did you
having,
ever run into issues with that? Maybe that you weren't necessarily underselling yourself, because I can't ever imagine a situation where you would undersell
oh, it
yourself.
happens.
But are there, when you're dealing with clients that maybe haven't had any relationships with freelancers, navigating that conversation of worth and the value that you bring
Mhm.
compared to them, hiring somebody full time or whatever, how have you navigated that friction with your various clients, if there has been any?
Mhm. I think that you just have to have an open dialogue about what everybody wants and needs. When somebody hires me, it's my job to look out for the best interests of the company, regardless of what it is that I'm doing. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, whatever my agenda is, that it, meets up. Um, so I don't know. Usually I have a pretty good idea of what I would like to happen, or I can see a project or something in a larger picture of what I'm trying to achieve. And usually for me, that's about finding the stability that I was able to kind of visualize between the first time that I freelanced, which was just totally chaotic, um, to uh, to a more stable position. Was like, okay, so I need to have a retainer client. I need to have something predictable that I can build on, and um, and then I can take on as many projects as suits my time and capacity. And I like to always have a little project that I'm just kind of playing with too, where I'm just developing some skills or whatever it is that I want to do next. But getting that anchor, that foundational client is pretty crucial, at least to the way that I operate my business. And there's many different models for different skill sets, but I think having that kind of philosophy before you go out and just start looking for work or taking projects or sending out proposals, that was really the revelation that I had between the first time out and the second time, and it was very powerful and exciting.
Having that network of peers in the PR
Mhm.
space help with the navigation of those conversations, being able to say, hey, this is what this has been my experience with these types of clients. This is the pay range that has
Mhm.
been really successful for me, or like the contract structure that has worked for me.
Mhm.
Being able to share that kind of stuff, was that beneficial, or were you able to figure it out mostly within yourself?
That was super beneficial. Talking to anybody that knew anything or could relate. In some ways, at various points I felt like I could relate to business owners better than I could people, who work in the traditional workforce. Like, there's just a next level of responsibility and considerations that you have. But yeah, so talking to them was tremendously helpful. One of the and this is actually true a few times over. I was talking to a woman about, she was trying to hire me on for a project or something for a client. And it was the first time that we'd met, and we were at Coco Cinnamon and we were talking, and just really hit it off. She's had this, very impressive background. And I was, of course, totally wowed with her, and great conversation. Anyways, at the end of it, she says, okay, well, so it would be great to work together. So just tell me what your rate is. And so I gave it to her, and she just stopped and she said, okay, no, that's not your rate. That needs to be a lot higher. And
Mhm.
I just it was incredible. It was incredible having just sitting there and having a a potential client just reset my rate, and the way that I was like valuing even just the time that we'd spent on that coffee was incredible. And I'll tell you, like, a couple of times this has happened where it really is my client who just comes back and says, nah, we need to reassess this project, or you need to be charging more. And I think that that's I have so much respect for those people, and I owe them so much. It's it's great, and I really hope that more people can have an open conversation about the value of work and all that.
It does seem like when you are centering the conversation around people and not around numbers in the
Hmm.
abstract,
Hmm.
that you have instances like that where somebody says, no, I know where you're coming from as an individual.
Hmm.
I recognize you and your value as a person and your skills. Let's, to your point, reevaluate this. You know, I don't think that that happens often, and especially in the startup space, there's just like everyone is sort of a cog in the machine,
Hmm.
and it's true for bigger corporations, certainly true for bigger corporations too. But there's it's just like everybody is a gear, and no one is being valued as an individual anymore, and that seems to be true across um, workforces, and something that we're honestly reckoning with in this country right now. I think it's just like we're talking about people. These, they're not just employee number
Hmm.
5 or employee number 5,000 at your company. That they have kids they might want to put through college. They have their own student debt that they need to pay off. They have aspirations for buying homes and all kinds of other things. And so I think that that's it's really nice to hear that you were able to have that experience and how transformative it was, because I do think that that's something that a lot of folks struggle with. I think is like, what am I worth?
Hmm.
Um, what are my skills worth?
And
Particularly in
that's why I love to talk to people about that stuff, because I do have pretty good uh, sense of what going rates are, and just what people can ask for, or how they can ask for what they need, or how they can think about how they structure contracts, or whatever. And yeah, because it's just more about, like, having that conversation.
Had you
And
ever thought about going back to a full-time position with anyone during this?
I mean, I've had a couple of um, I mean, I've gone back and forth a number of times. So then I took a job with my client smashing boxes, and then was there for 3 years or so, that magic number again. And then, then went back to work for myself, and I'll probably always do that, because it's a career strategy. It served me very well to go between these two, and I have kind of jumped off the ladder, shimmied up my own rope, and then hit whatever rung I'm on, and it's worked, and it's been exciting and fun, and it's more just a question of what is yeah what's best serves the rest of my life goals at any one time.
What is
um,
one of the main things that pulls you back into the idea of doing? Because it seems like freelancing and working for yourself is um, your natural state. But what is it that would entice you enough to pull you into a more full-time position with a company?
yeah, that's a good question. I think the thing that is in the back of my mind right now is much larger than me, and it is But I believe in this country that if you are a leader, that now is the time to step up. And for me, I guess the question is, uh, do I feel like going back and being a leader in a company would make sense? And for me, potentially it would, if it means shaping the culture and perspective on work and the value of work and people, because I think that can make a big difference. So that would be what I would be open to.
So it sounds
Or
like that autonomy that you are used to having as a freelancer is
Mhm,
part of the equation with
mhm,
working for another business, is having the ability to, yeah, shape culture,
mhm,
shape, uh, the outcomes, shape
mhm,
the lives of the people on your
mhm,
team.
mhm.
Um, yeah, that I
So
think
I'm also able to do that on my own too, and some of the coaching work and all of that, which is why um, I already am satisfied on that. So is the question, would a better place to do that from be one of independence? I definitely, this last year was, it was like tremendously tumultuous and all that. And I became my son's preschool teacher, which was so exciting but unexpected. And I loved it. And,
are
a
you
lot of
teaching him business English?
yes, exactly. Yes. He's very, very astute, this one. But yeah, so all my clients, the projects kind of dialed back a little bit, slowed down and all that, but I still had a good year. And one of the things that made it good was my clients, that they get me, they know me, I work on some great teams, people doing good work, and so I felt just it was a good year in that respect. And also, I was able to easily flex into taking care of my son and doing the things that I needed to do for my family. So in a lot of ways, being independent served me very well this last year. Felt like I was really able to navigate things as well as possible.
There's a phrase that you mentioned to me on our pre-show call. You said, there's a difference between post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth, and
Mhm.
that sat with me a lot since then. And I'm wondering if you would share a little bit more about this idea of post-traumatic growth, and given the year that we've all had and continue to have into 2021, we're all reeling for different reasons, whether it's um, job loss, health, a number of things. But there are opportunities that come out of what we've all experienced. I know for me, I read a lot more books last year than I had probably since high school.
Uh-huh.
And that was something that I really enjoyed about sort of resetting my life a little bit and resetting my priorities and the way that I went about my days. And so there, even as we're hopefully transitioning back into quote unquote a normal life,
Mhm.
I'm constantly thinking about, okay, what are things that I did in this downtime that I actually really needed for my well-being, and how do I latch onto those and keep those and build my life around those, as opposed to those only being available to me in these unique moments, good or bad. And so yeah, I would hope that you could say a little bit more about what post-traumatic growth looks like for you and how you've been able to, leverage that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I spent a lot more time with myself, and done a lot more self-reflection and yeah, and personal work, and relationship building, really with the people that are so important in my life. I mean, I think that there's a lot of goodness that has come out of time spent with myself, just because so much of the work that I've done over the last few years is, is connecting work. It's ecosystem building. It's between the work that I do with Launch Bio and NC Idea and Freelance League. I was putting on a lot of networking events. Was talking to a lot, because that's what lights me up. People light me up, and yeah, and it was so exciting. And I was doing not just these 100, 200, 300 person events here, but I was doing those in New York and Boston too. And so I had just a growing network like crazy. And yeah, so at first it was really jarring to be like not around a ton of people, and it was kind of a relief in a way. And yeah, I think that for me, just being knowing that we have a choice between kind of staying in shock and resisting, even the next year or two, or lifetime that we're dealing with this pandemic or whatever it is, just still things are still very uncertain, but feeling this time like, okay, I have a choice. I have grown as a person. I have more skills that I spent 2020 developing that I can apply to, my experience going forward, rather than staying in this space of being, anxious and stressed out and searching and all of that. I think we all have that choice, and it's really powerful.
Yeah, I think that it's strange to, for a long time during the pandemic, you'd see somebody maybe you hadn't seen in a while, and they say, "Oh, how are you?" And it almost, I know
Mm,
I felt this way where I would be like ashamed almost to say, "Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing
yeah,
okay,"
yeah.
because I had this time to, like you said, self-reflect and read, and I went on more bike rides, and it's just like, I was taking care of myself in a way that I wasn't before, because I was grinding away at the things that I was working on and just so consumed by work and social life and all these things. And so I think you're getting at something about this choice. We have a choice to um, try and lean into the good, and not necessarily dismiss the negative things outright, but just
Not at all,
sort of
yeah.
recognize them and try to compartmentalize them in a way that they aren't overwhelming or not so disruptive to what we want to accomplish.
Right, like figure out how you're going to use your energy around that, that um, issue or whatever it is. Um, yeah, I think also, out of 2020, I have a much stronger sense of the experience of others being just wildly different. We have had this collective experience, this collective trauma, and knowing that there's a whole spectrum of how that's gone down for everybody is really important. And no, you just can't ignore it. And I think that's also a great place to arrive. Being aware of others on a totally different level, being aware of the experiences that people are having in society right now.
Yeah, I think this goes back to a common thread throughout this conversation of just understanding people, putting your anthropology degree to work and just recognizing that like people, are individuals and not, you can't apply all of the same things to every person, every freelancing PR person that you meet is not going to be exactly like you. Um, and that's true across the spectrum. And so putting people at the center of your work and being willing to shift and compromise a bit and learn and grow, I think is something that we've all had to come to grips with, and I think will hopefully make us all a lot stronger coming out of this. I know that that's something that an attitude that I've tried to carry as much as possible going into 2021. It's just like, okay, that last year was pretty tough, but um, you know, thankfully a lot of us have, landed on our feet and have things to be thankful for, and so like we just got to keep on pushing and um
Yeah, and I think in order to show up for other people, you need to be, in a really healthy place yourself. And so those of us who, were able to, uh, yeah, put in the time and make some progress on ourselves and feel in a better place, then this is great. This is, and we're potentially, inclined to service in the first place. Well, I feel good about that, and like it's time to, all right, let's get in there and apply ourselves to helping those who, who need our help.
what have been some of the highlights of your experience as a solopreneur, as a freelancer?
Oh man, yeah, highlights. Oh gosh, it's hard to just kind of think about any individual uh, projects off the top of my head. I think I just have enjoyed being able to contribute to a lot of companies in a meaningful way. I've gotten to invent a lot of things. I've gotten to come in and explain things and give life to ideas. I've gotten to uh, help build teams and get folks started and connect them to others and create opportunities for others. I think yeah, that's just been so much fun. Getting to work with people that I really like and have become very good at working with. To me, I would say is really that's been the highlight. That's a big part of the appeal. I've done a lot of interesting work and projects. And have been kind of all over the map, from tourism and music to tech and biotech, and done a little bit of food and some, just a random smattering. And I learned a little bit about from everything that I applied to all the other projects. And that's great. People have trusted me with some really things that are very important to them. And I've enjoyed that opportunity.
If you could give a tidbit of advice to somebody that was thinking about making the leap into freelancing, what would be the have to know for them before they take that jump?
I think it really is just what's going to stabilize it for you. That just takes a little bit of the takes a little bit of the pressure off. What's your strategy for getting into it? Because I think just leaping out into the abyss is not wise. I know many people have been found themselves freelance and not by choice in the last year, and I certainly identify with that very strongly, of getting into something where you feel kind of not all that great of confidence in, am I unemployed or am I freelancing? What am I? Am I? And to me, that's just kind of a little bit of it's mindset is part of it. But yeah, I think just having an idea for how am I going to get that first client, or just having a little bit of a plan. And if you don't, then just focus. I would suggest going around and asking, those folks who've worked with you before, asking them, what is it that I'm, really great at? What am I best at? And that oftentimes that information is so much better than getting all up in your head of like, okay, and then this is the service that I'm going to provide, and just having this very complex idea of what you're going to offer a company, when really you just need to start, flip your mindset a little bit more. What do they need? And if they can start, putting words to that, and you can listen for opportunities in there that match up with your skill sets, then that's kind of how it starts to come together. But having realistic expectations for yourself about how long is it going to take to bring in some business? What's it, when things are kind of slow, how am I going to approach that? So really facing that fear and saying, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of income, things being really unstable. Okay, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to, to plan for that? And that's just so much more empowering than being like, okay, and I'm just going to white knuckle it until, until something bad happens. And then, hopefully I'll have some work. I've totally been there. But, you can take charge of some of that stuff. And I think with as much information as out there about freelancing and independent work and side hustling and anybody, anything that relates to that. There's a lot of resources to draw on.
All right, this is the last question I have for you, and we'll get out of here. Going back to your days as a band manager, I'm curious, there was a band throughout history that you could have managed at the peak of their powers. Who would you want to take on?
Man, I don't think I don't know. I think I don't know if I'd manage bands again. Even if it was like a dream client, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I just want to be a fan. I love music, and I love working with musicians. And I think I learned so much from working with musicians and that personality that I was able to apply to working with entrepreneurs and CEOs and all that kind of stuff. But
so let's just say you're a roadie then. You don't have to be the manager. You just get to tag along on the tour bus and maybe like take pictures, or I don't know. But you get to just like be on tour experiencing a band firsthand.
Boy. Well, probably Panda Bear. I think that would be fun.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't think I know that band at all. No,
Really?
But now I'm like, I got to go deep in the catalog now.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Okay. I'll send you a link.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I asked that question, and now if I were to try and answer it myself, I don't think I'd do a very good job. I've always said that it'd be really fun to tour with the Beastie Boys. I think if
Uh-huh.
put on the spot, that would be my answer. I don't know if it would be my final answer, but I just think that they're like, they're so rambunctious, and were making a certain style of music at a time where people were just like, what the hell, they were kind of forging their own path in a way. And I think just, from what I can tell, their tours must have been incredibly entertaining.
Yeah. I'll have to think on that a little bit more. And
I'll come back to you. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing all of your wisdom. It's one of the things that I miss the most about seeing people in person is I just feel like I've been lucky enough to have been acquainted with so many people that, anytime I walk the streets of Durham, I run into somebody and I grab some new bit of knowledge that I can take back and, introduce into my life, into my work. And I really miss that. And that's something that I've gotten a lot from you over the years. So it's nice to have a platform to share that, share a little bit of that with other people.
Well, it's nice to hear that, and the feeling is very mutual. And I imagine after this time and the work that you're doing, that you will have a lot to contribute, a lot of wisdom to contribute. So I'll look forward. I'll take notes. How about that? Bring my pen and paper next time I see it.
Is there a place, you probably don't have a SoundCloud link, but is there a place that you want to send people to follow your work?
LinkedIn is probably that's the place I hang out the most, which isn't much, but you can find me on there.
I'm finding my way more and more on LinkedIn these days. I finally deleted my Facebook, so I think LinkedIn is like the new place for me to commune with other professionals, I guess. So LinkedIn's fine. LinkedIn is a great answer.
It's a very there's a clear transaction there.
Exactly. Well, thanks again for being on the show, and I look forward to us. I think this thing will be over sooner rather than later. I have faith, so I think we'll get to hang out again very soon. But until then, I wish you the best.
Yes, same to you.